I'm really pleased and to introduce a colleague of mine within MSU Extension, Julie Darnton. Julie is a Extension educator serving Saginaw and Genesee counties in the areas of community food systems and leadership and community engagement. And the Community Food Systems work group is part of the Greening Michigan Institute. And I give a big welcome to Julie Darnton.
Hi there. As Rich said, I'm an MSU Extension educator working in community food systems, and that is how communities engage around food systems and what MSU Extension can do around food systems. So I'll start with this. I think that's just, yeah, there we go. First of all, this is going to be a story. I don't have a research summary to share with you. I want to start out by just thanking Rich for his support and this opportunity to be part of this event. And it's really important that I recognize my colleague, Terry McLean, who is here in the room, for offering her support to me in this talk. She and I have been very fortunate to be part of a team of people that has worked to improve the food system in Flint. And I'm going to share a story about how the water crisis has changed the flow of resources to support the Flint food system. So in addition to my work history with MSU Extension for 11 years, I also have a personal history that is intertwined with this story. I'm the third generation of my family to be raised in Flint. I was raised by a history teacher, so I've worked hard to limit the history portion and the lecture therein that could be here, but rest assured I could probably do an hour if you need me. Flint's long history includes timber, carriage manufacturing, and Flint is the birthplace of both General Motors and the United Auto Workers. The food system of Flint has been shaped by the people and the economic forces of the community. In the center here, you see a picture of Hamady Brothers grocery store. And one of the ways that they grew was by courting the automobile customer with parking lots and the ability to drive to the store. In addition to that, Flint is known for some of its local eateries, like 24-hour diners, such as Angelo's Coney Island, which is here. And that is something that expats talk about with fondness. And they're open 24 hours to serve shift workers at General Motors and other plants in the area. And most of the time, people were going to and from the shop, which is what it was called in Flint. Those shops formed the engine of the growth of the city from 1930s and 40s into the 1970s. When the oil crisis caused a decline in automotive manufacturing and disinvestment began. In addition to that history, this farmer's market picture is the old farmer's market in Flint, which is where my grandmother used to shop, and certain days were certain meals because that's when she could get certain things fresh. For example, liver and onions on Thursday. The original farmers market building was part of the Works Progress Administration. It was built in the 30s, and the new market that's replaced that is a boon to the revitalizing downtown. Many sources in literature and research have chronicled the deindustrialization, disinvestment, loss of population, and abandonment of homes that have come like waves, some like tsunamis in Flint. If you've missed it, you may want to check out the films of Michael Moore or books of recent history with quite uplifting titles like Tear Down, A Town Abandoned, or Demolition Means Progress. In fact, revitalization has often been marked by equal or sometimes greater forces, like an undertow, challenges that come in the form of economic, political, and fiscal. And along with the millions of cars produced in Flint, it's also a great exporter of people. The city's master plan of 1960 projected a population rising above 250,000 people. Today, the community is well under 100,000 in population. So in the face of these challenges, and with the support and funding of different entities interested in food systems work in the late 2000s and early parts of this decade, the Flint community came together to work on developing a local food system built around urban agriculture and advocacy. There have always been gardens in Flint that have fed families and neighbors. And many of the people who migrated to Flint to work in the shop came from farms through the Great Migration. And their roots reached to Arkansas and other parts of the South. Programs that were focused on reducing urban blight in the early 2000s, like Genesee County Land Bank's Clean and Green program, resulted in people beginning to grow more food on a large scale with the purpose of nourishing neighborhoods. We have to honor pathbreakers like the Flint Urban Garden and Land Use Corporation and the Salem Housing Task Force, which is now part of the Neighborhood Engagement Hub, that were sharing tools and equipment to maintain green spaces. We also want to recognize some of our pioneers like Carolyn Meekins, who worked for years to build the first hoop house in Flint. And she had to overcome skepticism and a municipal bureaucracy that was often more interested in justifying its existence over finding solutions or being part of innovative solutions. There were many people who weren't waiting for organizations to spring up. They were finding ways to match their dreams with action. In 2008, the Ruth Mott Foundation supported food systems research from MSU focused on Flint and Genesee County. And in 2009, as a result of that effort, the creation of an organization called Edible Flint, a network of people and organizations that were working to support Flint residents in growing and accessing healthy food in order to reconnect them with the land and each other. Edible Flint has supported more than 1,000 garden projects since that time and has provided garden kits, compost, tilling, technical assistance. We've had food summits, garden tours, and we've even had a marketing cooperative for a short amount of time. Neighbors and congregations were adopting lots and planting seeds, and urban farms were still conversation pieces, but they were also becoming a novel adaptation strategy in a city that some people had long ago written off. Edible Flint continued the work of Clean and Green, recommending and providing soil testing for gardens to make sure that there wasn't lead in the soil. Lead is really a reality in urban communities with older housing stock like Flint, and where homes have been removed and industrial activity has gone on for decades. So all this food systems work was happening, and Flint was starting to gather itself again for another Renaissance effort. And then in 2014, even as the new Flint Farmers Market was opening, grocery stores began to close around the city. I wonder if there must have been some kind of market report that said, get out. And food access became even more of a challenge for the residents. Also in 2014, there were a lot of changes around the water system. In 2015, it was revealed that inadequate water treatment resulted in lead-contaminated drinking water. And this story is not really going to focus on the ins and outs of the lead crisis. There are lots of places where you can get that information. And this screenshot shows my simple Google for Flint, Michigan headlines with really great graphics. If you ever see your town in a sepia, you know that something's gone terribly wrong. I would also recommend Bridge Magazine if you really want a good timeline. And this timeline is from MediaMatters.org. But here's what we know about lead. It's well known. It's a neurotoxin that affects the development of social and emotional centers in the brain. It's also absorbed into tissues and can affect generations beyond the initial exposure. And it's being found in levels, it was being found in levels far above what's considered acceptable by regulatory agencies, including the EPA. But one of the ways to combat the negative effects of lead exposure is improved nutrition. So, Flint residents were already working to grow more food and change their food system. And now there's interest in providing resources that would enhance that food system. Entities like the Flint Farmers Market, the Community Foundation of Greater Flint, the Flint YMCA, Genesee Conservation District, and the Neighborhood Engagement Hub. A small business has grown called the Local Grocer that's engaging along with local farmers, working to increase access to healthy food, which is a key component of nurturing a healthy, productive community. In the past year, 2 new innovative food access initiatives have begun. The Flint Fresh mobile market provides a small, nimble access point without the limitations of a brick and mortar retail operation. The mobile market was planned in a participatory process to map out and focus on areas of the city with the greatest need and the best access for lead mitigating foods. It's a nonprofit and it accepts food assistance benefits. In May 2017, the Flint Fresh Veggie Box program began delivering subscriptions of fresh produce to ensure that Flint residents have more access. And to date, 500 veggie boxes have been sold and delivered. In the spring of 2018, the new Flint Fresh Food Hub will become the base of operations for the mobile market and veggie box. And through the rehabilitation of an old building on the east side of Flint, a warehouse that will aggregate, store, and process locally marketed foods, locally produced foods. And there's interest in more community-led efforts. As you can see here, there's the development of a cooperative market that's being led by an African-American pastor. It's going to take over a closed grocery store. Another one of those closed grocery stores reopened where a large chain store closed. And there's improvement for food resources, pantries and corner stores. And there's going to be a tide here too, and an undertow. And the questions remain, how will the community be able to support these efforts, and what can be sustained in a community that hasn't yet stabilized its population? In an era of meal kits and grocery delivery, how will these entities compete? And with that, I'm going to close because my time is up, but I just want to highlight some of the work that Michigan State has done, Michigan State University Extension has done to respond to the lead crisis, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Finish the question. We'll see if there's another question.
Okay.
How do food programs work?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so sure. So how do all the Flint food programs work with the water quality efforts? So I would say they're parallel, but one of the realities of the Flint water crisis is that some of the support has tapered off as a result of kind of a sunset on the funding. So there's now a cessation of bottled water distribution through the centers around the city, and food resources are ramping up even as water resources directly. However, there has been an effort to change out pipes to make sure that people have filters. There's been a lot of door-to-door activity in the community to address the needs of homeowners and businesses to make sure they have water resources.
Yeah, the second question.
Okay.
So let's wait. If you would repeat the
Sure,
question
I will
first.
definitely repeat the question. What are efforts to keep Flint Fresh mobile market prices affordable? Are you finding there is a significant use of EBT and double up food bucks? So some of the prices are adjusted to make sure that they're meeting a market that can buy them. But we're very sensitive to the fact that we can't lower prices beyond what's profitable for farmers and producers. And we have to figure out a way to maintain a subsidy of those programs. I think most of the people who are utilizing the Flint Fresh mobile market are engaged. They're either paying out of their pocket or they are using food assistance benefits. And Double Up Food Bucks is another program that's increased around the city. So there's more than just farmers markets that can take that. Now there's markets in the city, grocery stores that can also accept Double Up Food Bucks. We hope that robust support can continue. All right.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.